Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ishim Rakah Kudash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ishim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you Akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on activistpost.com titled, Virginia Activates Official Militia in Response to Gun Confiscation Threats. Lawmakers want to make this a felony. With each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to a civil war in the United States of America. These American Edomites are so-called white people on both sides of the divide, whether they be conservative or liberal, are sick of each other and ready to lock horns. These conservative Edomites feel like they're losing their American heritage and identity to a globalist agenda, which sees these corporations outsourcing their jobs to other countries, U.S. borders being dissolved, which leads to a mass immigration of third world peoples into the country, which they see as a browning out of their racial demographics, as well as the media portraying them as backwards religious fundamentalists who are sexist and racist and holding back progress in society, while these liberal Edomites see these conservative Edomites as that very same thing, as a relic of the past holding back progress, because they're more for a unified global society which sees all races, creeds, sexes, and sexual orientations unified and working together. And the powers that be that really run this country, the elites behind the scenes, such as the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, see this division and push for this division because they're ready to bring about their new world order. Civil wars, race wars, false flag terror attacks, and an economic collapse are a perfect cover to enact a state of martial law to further bring about that new world order. And one of the first plans they want to enact to make this violent transition to that new world order as easy as possible are gun laws which restrict gun ownership, because they know that you do have these American patriots out here and militia groups that are ready to go the distance and die if need be if the powers that be come after their guns. But first and foremost, it's all through the will of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai bringing about this division to fulfill prophecy. As Virginia lawmakers prepare to pass a draconian gun control bill that would make most guns in the state illegal, Tazewell County has formed an official active militia as per the Second Amendment to the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. To all of those who like to mock gun owners and ask if they're going to fight tyranny in a militia, Virginia's answer is a clear and adamant yes. That's exactly what they're planning to do. And this plays into 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to start at 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another. Not only race wars, but civil wars as well. And swords in their hands, the modern day sword being that gun, especially in the United States of America. For there shall be sedition among men. And when you go into the dictionary definition for that word sedition, it reads, conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch, such as Virginia activating militias to be a safeguard against Virginia lawmakers passing gun confiscation laws and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. And these modern day kings and princes are these government officials, these mayors, these governors, these senators, these presidents, you name it. And by these militias being activated in Virginia to go against a possible passing of a gun confiscation law, that's these people showing that they're not regarding the laws of their kings or princes, and that they're ready to do whatever needs be to keep their rights, which they feel are being infringed upon. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, a state of martial law, from race wars breaking out, civil wars breaking out, an economic collapse, or a false flag terror attack. A quick recap of what's happening so far. Here's a little bit of background on the proposed weapons ban from my last article. After the most recent election, the state's House and Senate are both Democratic majorities, and they haven't wasted a moment in attempting to gut the gun laws in what has historically been a permissive state. The so-called assault weapon ban is SB 16 and has that perilously vague wording we all know to be incredibly dangerous. In some interpretations, this law, if it passes, could make illegal the ownership or transportation of any semi-automatic gun because extendable magazines are available for it, and you don't even have to have the extendable mags. Unsurprisingly, a lot of Virginians are outraged by the idea of this and discussion of a grandfather clause that allows you to keep your semi-autos as long as you register them has done nothing to assuage the ire of gun owners. Counties across the state quickly organized into Second Amendment sanctuaries. As of December 16th, 89 counties, cities, or municipalities have passed sanctuary resolutions, and 6 passed resolutions to protect the Second Amendment rights of citizens, but refuse to use the word sanctuary. Other locations are still debating their stances. And here's a map of these Second Amendment sanctuaries in Virginia. That's pretty much the entire state. Then to really stir the pot, State Representative Don McEachin had the bright idea of calling up the National Guard to squelch the rebellion. McEachin also noted that Democratic Virginia Governor Ralph Northam could call the National Guard if necessary. And ultimately, I'm not the governor, but the governor may have to nationalize the National Guard to enforce the law, he said, because people are planning on not regarding their kings or princes, a sedition among men. That's his call, because I don't know how serious these counties are and how severe the violations of law will be, but that's obviously an option he has. As you can imagine, that didn't go over well. The National Guard's response. Major General Timothy P. Williams, the Adjutant General of Virginia's National Guard, responded rather vaguely via Twitter. We have received multiple questions regarding proposed legislation for the 2020 General Assembly session and the authority of the Governor of Virginia to employ the Virginia National Guard in a law enforcement role. We understand and respect the passion people feel for the U.S. Constitution and Second Amendment rights. We will not speculate about the possible use of the Virginia National Guard. And when whatever trigger event occurs to bring about this mass civil unrest, expect to see more than just the National Guard patrolling these streets and upholding law and order. You're going to see FEMA troops, NATO troops, which have been embedded in this country, get activated, along with Russian and Chinese troops, and also mercenary troops showing no mercy to you U.S. citizens, especially 2/3 of you Israelites, or you so-called Negroes and Latinos and Native Americans who are hard-headed and refuse to hearken back under your power, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, when they're out here quashing this rebellion and rounding up you people to send you to those detention centers. Which pretty much says the same thing. Based on the responses in the Twitter thread, folks found Major General Williams' lackluster response less than comforting. So now a militia is forming in Virginia. Tazewell County is taking this threat to the Second Amendment very seriously. Not only did they pass a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution, but they've also officially begun to form a militia. Law Enforcement Today reports, just this past Tuesday on December 10th, the Board of Supervisors from Tazewell County passed 2 different resolutions in light of controversy circling those who are pro-gun. The first resolution declared the county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary. This is not at all surprising to see, as 76 out of 95 counties, 9 out of 38 independent cities, and 13 towns have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. The second item on the agenda was the proposition of establishing a militia in the county. When both of the resolutions passed, the crowd cheered loudly in support of the decision. Also, the resolutions didn't exactly pass by a small margin. The votes were unanimous, with more than 200 citizens standing by in support. They shall not regard their kings or princes. County Administrator Eric Young explained why the county has opted to form a militia. Our position is that Article 1, Section 13 of the Constitution of Virginia reserves the right to order militia to the localities. Therefore, counties, not the state, determine what types of arms may be carried in their territory and by whom. So we are ordering the militia by making sure everyone can own a weapon. Thus, if anyone from the state tries to remove the sheriff from their elected office because they refuse to enforce unjust laws, those state officials will be faced with a lawful militia composed of citizens within the state. There shall be sedition among men. This article explains the extensive training being offered by Tazewell County to its citizens in order to make sure everyone is acting safely and responsibly. I suspect Tazewell County will not be the only one that forms an official militia. The legislature of Virginia may have bitten off more than it can chew when they decide to come after the guns of rural citizens. Coincidentally, there's an anti-paramilitary bill on the table. It's probably no coincidence that at the same time militias are forming, there's also a bill to make them illegal. SB 64 has caused a huge hullabaloo. Here's some of the text of that bill. 18.2-433.2, paramilitary activity prohibited, penalty. A person is guilty of unlawful paramilitary activity punishable as a Class 5 felony if he, 1, teaches or demonstrates to any other person the use, application, or making of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, knowing or having reason to know or intending that such training will be employed for use in or in furtherance of a civil disorder, one people standing against another. Verse 2, assembles with one or more persons for the purpose of training with, practicing with, or being instructed in the use of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, intending to employ such training for use in or furtherance of a civil disorder, or 3, assembles with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any person or group of persons by drilling, parading, or marching with any firearm, any explosive or incendiary device, or any components or combination thereof. Obviously, this is not a coincidence. They predicted how rural Virginians would respond to their gun-grabbing shenanigans. The plan all along was to confiscate guns and turn any organized resistance into a felony. Salakia. That's pretty much it with this article. You get the point. As you Akim can see, things are heating up. We're living in some very interesting times, and I don't know about you, but I'm very excited. It's a beautiful thing to see these prophecies coming to their fulfillment. And as it says in 2 Esdras chapter 9, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, know that it is the very same time wherein the Most High will begin to visit the world in which he made. For as there is a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, our salvation is nearer than what we believed, Akim. So now more than ever, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you can to make your calling and election sure and be saved from these coming calamities of Jacob's trouble. And also expect to see these civil tensions between these Edomites increase more and more as we get closer to that day, which is why you Israelites that have a knowledge of this truth should be doing whatever you can to separate yourself from these different heathen nations, especially these Edomites, because when these tensions do eventually boil over, you don't want to be caught out here in the midst of it. But now I'm going to go to Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, speaking of these American Edomites, because the United States of America, besides being known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures, is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. And they shall fight, everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom. Not only are these lower level average Joe American Edomites going to fight each other, but you're going to have these Edomites, such as those in those militia groups, fight against these higher up Edomites in the government, those kings and those princes, and vice versa. And as Yahushua said in Mark chapter 3, I'm going to read 24 to 25, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Esau, Edom is done. Not only is his kingdom divided in America, but it's divided globally, with the U.S. against NATO, NATO against the U.S. against the EU, and vice versa, as well as these Russian Edomites against these American Edomites. The list goes on and on. So just hold strong, Akim. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathens, chiefly Esau, Edom. And as always, I'm going to say Abba Bal, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.